So today we're not on a traditional setup because it is Pip's birthday, so we're out of town. Yeah, we're very excited about that. But we still wanted to do the live today because we never want to miss it if we can help it, and especially today because we're so excited with the topic, which is going to be networking for freelancers. And so to do that, I brought in a help of our friend Aura McKay, who's a networking specialist.
Hello, thanks for having me. It's super exciting to get a chance to participate in front of the camera on Geekspeak because I'm so used to watching you guys live and sitting by with my pen and paper. So
Yeah,
thanks for
yeah.
this opportunity. I'm excited.
It'll be a lot of fun. I know when we were doing the prep, we were pretty got we had, it was a lot of fun back and forth of just figuring out ways to like maximizing your network, because I think in this world of 2024 the in-person events are becoming more the norm, and there things are shifted, and so a lot of people are going for these in-person meetings. So we thought we'd give some helpful tips for you guys to get the most out of it, to make sure that you've got so many avenues to do for sales and marketing, and so it's if you're going to do that, that you're making sure you're getting the most out of it.
One of the things that I really love about network marketing and networking is that it really leverages the whole zeitgeist we're having right now, which is relationships. And people want to know they're connecting with real people. People care about people in a different way. So, building and nurturing relationships through networking and expanding your network to take advantage of things like referrals and word of mouth. I know that's one of the ways that Seymour Digital has grown, has been
Mm-hmm.
because you do such great work for your clients, and then they tell two people, and then they tell two people. And so, how can we leverage networking and be able to track what we're doing, be able to know whether it's working, and not have it be just like, I don't know, it's word of mouth. I don't know where the clients come from. So
Yeah.
that's really what I'm excited to talk to you about, is because I know how to get the network, but then how do we track it? How do we make sure that we're really gathering the data and understanding the conversion path of in-person network?
Yeah, exactly. Because I think that another kind of refrain about this that kind of came up was like the quality over the quantity. Like you're trying to talk to the right person at the right time, and what does that look like? And so you're trying not to look for huge numbers game per se, because that's just not how the business operates. Because it's really one or two people.
And you've been in that room where there's that one person that's got a stack of their business cards, and they're like, you get a business card, and you get a business card, and you get, and they're just trying to collect names.
Yeah.
And that's not ever been an effective way to network. Well, I don't know about ever, but it's not, in my opinion, it's not a very effective way to network. And it's like marketing online. The more targeted your message, the more focused who you're trying to attract and connect with and build those relationships, the more successful your effort's going to be. So that's definitely the first thing, is to be selective about who you connect with. But I really want to go into, like, how can we track that? Like, how do we know we're
Mm-hmm.
connecting with people who are going to take action and come and engage with our content, and who are going to take the action after meeting us in person or even online? Like, how do we measure that or track it?
Yeah. Yeah, because I think that when we talked about was having like a dedicated landing page for the event. So if you're going into an event and I've got these type of people are going to be there, you can tailor a landing page to those people. So the messaging is going to be, say, I don't know, it's social media
Whatever,
marketing.
but it's instead of sending them to a link tree, which is a very generic kind
Yeah.
of like great tool, but building instead on your own site a specific landing page to welcome those people that you are networking with, and saying, hey, thanks for connecting with me at the conference.
Yeah.
This is who I am, this is where we met, or even just specific links that you want them to follow next, or specific journeys that you want them to take. Because we know that not everybody who lands on a landing page wants to go in the same direction.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and or you can also have like giveaways that on there as well. That say you had something that was targeted for, hey, I actually have a giveaway there, and so that you put them into an email sequence, and all you had to do was just have it targeted to them, and it's based on the issue that they're having, and so it's, oh, actually I have something for this, and so you
So
can.
how do we measure that? Because I can build a landing page, and I can even do something like create a pretty link. And I know we've talked about like tiny URLs or using pretty links to when we're networking so that we're directing people to a specific kind of trackable page through a
Yeah.
pretty link or on a landing page. And that's great because then I can see how many people clicked that pretty link. But
Yeah.
what I can't see is what happened subsequently, or even what was the conversion path that got them there in the
Yeah.
first place. So
Yeah.
how can I set that up to be able to then, like you were talking in your knowledge labs about
Yeah.
your J4 analytics, and okay, you can gather the data, but then how do you leverage it? And so how do we do that? Like, how do we bring that into our analytics so it becomes part of our conversion path information or our marketing data?
Yeah, that's definitely a good one because we were talking about you could use the pretty link to basically make it so it's a typable URL. So it's like your domain slash, I don't know, 2024 conference, something that's easy that anyone could type in. And then that pretty link will get sent to the landing page. And then in the link that you would send them on the landing page will have the UTM parameters. And so that's going to feed in information to Google Analytics that it's going to be this user that came from the UTM parameters you get to set. And so now that they're set, Google Analytics is going to say, oh, this person that was at conference and the medium is like a pretty link, something like that. You can make it whatever you like as long as it's legible to you and you know that these are the people that clicked on this, that typed in this link. And then Google Analytics will even store that information, and then it's like a step on the journey that it's
Exactly, it'll store that information, or do I
yeah.
have
So
to build UTM parameters myself?
you set the UTM if you're doing like a conference one, that's going to be totally targeted for yourself. So maybe you're going to multiple conferences. You can have conference, like the source is this conference, and then the medium is just conference. And so that way you could see not only categorize them by medium, meeting conference, but you can also categorize them by like specific conferences. And you could say, oh, these people, this conference, they actually spent a lot longer on the landing page. They were spending like 5 minutes, but there was no conversions. Whereas this other conference, I only had 2 people, but those 2 people like did what I wanted, got my guide, and now I've got them into my CRM. And so that's a way that you can break all these parts out of how to slice the data to be able to look at like different conferences. Of course, you got to be super strategic and like have it planned out of like how how I'm
Which
tracking those guys.
I think that people forget sometimes that networking can be very strategic and planned
Mm-hmm.
out in advance. Obviously, we don't have any real control over who we're going to meet, and but
Yeah,
you can make a list of people that you would want to meet, or make a list of the kind of prospect you're wanting to engage with, or the kind of person you're wanting to network with, just like you would with any other marketing tool, thinking
yeah,
about your audience, thinking about what the message is, thinking about what is the next step that they want to have, having that mapped out. And I think people forget that we can be as focused and intentional with our real life interactions as we can be online. Speaking of that, you did share with me something that I didn't know, that when we were doing the pre-show chat,
mm-hmm.
because I'm a super trusting person. And if somebody gives me their business card and I'm like, oh, great, it's got a QR code, I'm going to scan that. Of course, I'm
Yeah,
going to scan that. And then we also talked about, okay, digital business cards,
yeah.
are they okay? Are they suspect? And I didn't know that was like a potential danger zone that I was going into there.
Yeah, so QR codes, because what had happened is you don't really know when you scan it. You don't know what's on the other side. So that's the thing. And so if you're at a conference, I would be more trusting of someone else that's at the conference there than I would be someone on the street. Someone's just put up a QR code somewhere. Just don't scan those ones because you don't know what's going to happen when you scan that one. They could
Like,
put
who
malware.
knew that like scanning QR codes was like the 2024 risky behavior out there on the street?
Yeah,
Kids, don't
yeah,
do that. Don't
yeah.
scan the QR. Like,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you definitely you don't want to be just scanning anything willy nilly. Generally, the NFC codes are much safer. So that's the digital business cards, where they're the same as like any a credit card where you tap anything like that. So they're very set in what information they transmit.
who
Um,
programs that NFC? Is it the card? Like you have to send it out and then
yeah,
get like that? basically a bank card, but it's your business information.
So my understanding is it works like it's a radio signal that sends like a specific signal, and then that signal gets tied by the company that issued that card, where you can actually set up like where that redirects to, and so you get to, like, we were looking at Vistaprint with theirs, and they had something called Vista Profiles, and you would set up a profile, it'd have all this meta information about you, so when they clicked, they would actually just get a scan of your Vista profile. And so that's how they connected those ones, but they're much more set because you can't hack into Vista's servers to like change where they gets redirected. Whereas the QR code, it's programmable. You can set where it goes, so you can actually set it to go to a special spot where it injects some code and then goes on to do the next thing, and it looks like everything is fine.
Yeah, see, your dogs don't even want me to do it. They're like, "Don't do it, danger." So I don't know whether I'm just like too Gen X for the digital business. But there's a piece of once you scan those cards at a conference or something and the person walks away, all of a sudden I've got their data and it gets just lost in my phone. And then I don't know how to find them, and I don't know how to be able to make sure that like I get back to everybody whose digital card I scanned. So we were talking a little bit about how do you then move that information from a digital card to a place that's really powerful. And my like cheap and cheerful old school hack for that is I'll just take a selfie with the person that I want to meet, and then I'll know, okay, I'll know who they are. I'll have a better sense of where we met. I will get them to enter their own data so that I don't spell it wrong. And we talked about if we can have a way of our own contact list maybe automatically connecting to our CRM.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That would be so. Can you speak more to that one, Phelan?
Yeah, because there's a lot of avenues that are opening up, and Zapier is most likely going to be your friend in almost 90% of these situations. Is that you set up some sort of automatic like profile gets added that I've linked in my like it's going to be dependent on your CRM and the digital business card tool that you're using. Mm-hmm. But Zapier's pretty good when I was looking through that they have a lot of these automations that do automatic imports, and then import them to a specific sequence that you might have in your CRM, and then that metadata about them from conference, blah, 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 will get automatically added as part of the Zap.
That's what I love about Zapier and things like that is you can actually set it up so it can add really helpful tags for you when it does auto import into your CRM. So then you can customize your automations to be anyone who was tagged with this specific conference, etc., or anyone who was added between this and this date. That can be helpful.
Yeah, exactly. Because then later on, like you said, you can re-engage people. Maybe they only made it to the first level. And so it's like any person that was at the conference that made it to this level, I actually want to send them another follow-up email that's about XYZ thing that I'm now doing that might speak to them. And the more tags you put on users, the better experience you're going to have with this. I think that one other one that I really like that Google's quietly building out is the Google Contacts. They're actually making it to a much closer to a CRM where it has custom fields. It has, and because it's Google, all of the APIs, like the way they all speak to each other, all these services can talk to each other. So then all of a sudden you can then add users get added to different lists, or you can set them up into a drive, or different ways that you can connect it where these custom fields can really help you.
Yeah, it actually blew my mind when we were sharing screens and you showed me like the Google contacts. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's right there in Google now that they're doing that.
And it works with your email as well, right? So your Gmail, you can have your contact list, and then you can let's tie all these things together of like how you can pull them in. It really makes for a pretty good CRM that way, though Streak as well is pretty good for that. And
I'm not a Gmail or Gmail user in that sense. I'm definitely Active Campaign, and I have my own URLs and stuff that I use for my direct emails. I have a Gmail account to be able to some of this stuff. But one of the things that I think is really important to think if you get back to networking in real world or online is that like at the core, why are we there? Why are we at this networking event? Why are we there in the first place? And I think that a lot of people make the mistake of being at a networking event trying to get clients. And it's not really understanding the buyer's journey. And it's like trying to market, instead of marketing to someone, you're trying to sell before you've done any of the marketing. And I
Yeah.
think that's a really important distinction to make. And one of the things that happens is people get impatient with the process of nurturing relationships, which is why a CRM is important, so that you
Yeah.
can keep engaging with people over the long term, and also so you can separate. Because one of the things that I find really powerful in networking opportunities is meeting other colleagues, people who are in the same business as I am, that I might be able to collaborate with or
Mhm.
network with or have a referral relationship with. And so being able to identify, oh, this is a person who is a network grower or a connector or a builder or a collaborator, versus this is someone who is a prospect. And being able to identify that either in your Zap, or being
Mhm.
able to have a specific pretty link that you send people who are network versus prospects.
Yeah.
Anytime we can give ourselves more information, so that when we follow up, we're following up from an informed position about who we're actually talking to. I think that's one of the goals. And that's really what you keep talking about, Phelan, is how to gather that information, how to organize it, and how to read it effectively.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, yeah, I would say that it reminds me of an analogy is you want to have like your hopper filled. You're not going to have everyone at the very end of the process. You want to have people all throughout, so that if there's ever a situation where it's, oh, I need more prospects at this point, like whatever that happens to be, for your own funnel or your own sales process, that you don't have too many people coming at you like ready to buy right away and you're overwhelmed and then you just have too much work and you can't get it done. You also don't want to, so you want to have it nice and consistent. So this is also where the CRM really helps you, where it lets you know where each of the funnel is.
CRM and or database, because one of
Yeah.
the things, there's a couple of books that I have read recently on networking, and it's absolutely extraordinary how businesses can be built just on word of mouth, referral, networking, connecting who, and not needing to be online at all. It is entirely possible to grow that kind of a business. And the important thing, though, is that you still need to be able to have that database or that CRM tracker to be able to say, oh, I know an SEO person that would be great for that business. So
Yeah.
even doing that ability to connect people in your network, to be that connector yourself, is such a value add for all of your relationships. So I like a CRM, maybe it's a Notion database, but being able to use those tools to be able to nurture those sort of farther outward networking relationships. Do you have any thoughts about like tools specifically that you would use to recommend that?
Um,
Recommend for
yeah, definitely a Notion. It would be really good. Airtable is also really good as a very customizable table field. Yeah, it's a fun one that I always get a little overwhelmed, like Notion, where it's just you have too many tools and it's a blank slate. I always find those to be a little, your mind wanders a little too far. If I could do this and this, and then you get nothing done. But yeah, it's definitely, you can, and it works both ways as well, right? That, like you said, if you build up a network of like potential people that render services that aren't yours, and you're helping other people, it works the other way as well, because you're going to be well remembered by the person that you got the work for, that they're going to come back to you and say, hey, I really appreciate that. I actually have someone that just reached out yesterday. They're not a good match for us, but you would be a really good match based on our conversations. And so it's not necessarily direct. It's building out your network horizontally, not just like vertically of like new clients and leads and where they go, but it's also about people that are at your level and you're helping each other out, because you don't overlap per se. And like different people that are doing different services, that it's always good to have.
for everybody. We
Oh
don't
yeah.
have to live in this scarcity world of, oh, if I give you work, then, oh, maybe there won't be enough for me. Or I really love the book that I really love about this is The Go Giver, which is, we can put that in the show notes later, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
it's
for sure.
makes
Yeah,
makes
yeah.
a big. We've been talking about in-person networking and then bringing that data into a tech world to be able to track it and leverage it and use it effectively. I want to just kind of circle around a little bit to online networking. Even though we've been doing Zoom rooms and Google Meets for several years
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
I still go into networking rooms and see people who are missing opportunities for how they're showing up there. And one of them is just being really mindful about your sign in name, your login name when you're in a room, that often your name is visible. And so I see some people in there that just have Aura McKay, all one word, all lowercase, because that's just how I signed in and nobody can really read it. I often, in a Zoom room, I really recommend that you go in and you change your name to be your name and where do you want them to connect with you. So you can put IG at and then your Instagram name, or you could put LI for LinkedIn, so that even if people never get to talk to you and they just see you in a room and you're being magnificent and you're helping other people and you're adding value and they think, oh, I want to connect with you, they have a really clear way to do that, even if you're not allowed to share in the chat or do anything else. It still gives you that that clear call to action, that every time you're anywhere online, you want to have a clear call to action. So I recommend doing that. What are your thoughts about putting links in the chat room? Is like,
I definitely like yours is like a more subtle, like if someone wants to take that inbound step, I think that's a good way to do that part. I feel like people have abused as well, like those chats and like posting the links and stuff like that, that I feel like it can get a little overtired. But I think that, yeah, and it also comes back to the number one rule of being online, which is being helpful, right? Like as long as you're being helpful, like most people want to meet you, they want to work with you. That's the biggest takeaway I'd have. The other one that kind of came up is like an analogy in my head of when you're doing these in person or online, any sort of networking or meeting people, you should think of it more as like a survey than it is like you're trying to find out things about what's going on for you, what's hurting, like how can, if you could fix one thing today, what would it be? Like what you're doing is you should be asking questions to figure out where they are rather than try to push what you're doing, because and you may find that because you may build like a product all by yourself or some solution, and then you find out like, oh, that doesn't even solve the problem that they actually have.
yeah. And you're sitting there like tooting your horn and they're like, I'm not even in the same, I don't like, this isn't relevant to me. The other thing I love about that, Phelan, is that in psychology, the more that people talk about themselves, the more they like you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is why I say in networking, let the other person always go first. Be curious. It goes back to Stephen Covey's habits. Seek first to understand before you seek to be understood. And that idea of getting curious about people. You're right. They're so rare that we have opportunities to get in front of our potential target market or our prospects and actually ask them questions, like to do primary market research and to say, hey, what is going on in your industry? What are you excited about? What is your challenge? And that's super valuable. So go home and write the notes, because if you're anything like me, you'll hear a whole bunch of stuff and then you'll get home and you'll be like, yeah, that was so great. And the next thing you're like, oh, what did they say? Yeah. So write notes, habits for sure.
It's also, I'd say as well about like mindset as well for you as well, to make sure you have the right mindset when you're coming into a situation, because like you said at the start, not to get yourself discouraged because you thought, oh, I'm just gonna come in here, sell a whole bunch, and I'm gonna make like a bandit. And if you look at it, if you have the right mindset, then you're not going to feel disappointed, because you're like, I went in this to do market research, and I got a bunch of market research, and then I also have some prospects.
Talk to one person and you just get a little bit of insight. Those little bits of insight are the things that make the difference, which is why going back and looking at your data is so important. I work with a lot of creatives and a lot of freelancers, and it seems to be that a lot of them, they just want to go forward. They don't want to go back and look in their archives and come up with a portfolio. They don't want to go back and look at the data. They just want to do the next thing. And I think one of the things that we've hopefully shared with our listeners is that yes, the networking is important, but it's what you do after the networking that's going to make the biggest difference. It's how you track that networking. It's how much you engage with people and continue to invite them to what's appropriate for them based on the actions they've taken.
Yeah, exactly. There's going to be some level of like qualification and quantification. Like you don't want to be overly on one side or the other. Like in quantifying it, it's only meant to help you figure out, oh, this, like, actually figure out the hard numbers about the interactions with the, sorry, we could call
All these kinds of things. We got a Facebook user who's just commented that us journalists absolutely prioritize our portfolios. Yeah, for sure. And I think that there is an opportunity when you look at prioritizing your portfolio. Some creatives, your portfolio can speak for them, or sometimes, depending on where you are in your marketing journey, a portfolio can actually work for you. Oh, hey, Glenna. Sometimes you need words to go with that portfolio, especially if you're wanting to drive people to that portfolio and you want to invite people to see that portfolio. That's going to take the words, and a lot of times those words can be scraped from the conversations you have in networking if you're going in with that attitude of curiosity.
yeah, as well as you can also tailor your portfolio to those, whatever the conference may be. So you may have some where not all your work's appropriate, but you may have a couple of pieces that are going to really resonate with this type of person because you've known that in the past. That would be a good thing to bring when you're talking to those people. So again,
Or
being strategic.
page, that specific landing page, so that you have a specific portfolio that people at that conference would be interested in seeing for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that, yeah, just being more strategic about, hey, this type of conference, or even like maybe there's an event inside of the conference itself that I want to hit up, I don't know, doing copywriting for SaaS companies, and that you done a good job in the past. Well, that's a really good place to show up and just be like, hey, I've got a port. It's a way for you to get in front of those people in a hyper targeted event.
And so it's interesting because you're like, hey, I got a portfolio. I think that having the portfolio or having that landing page is like your ace in your back pocket. You have it there in case someone asks for it or needs it, but we don't want to be the, here's my portfolio, and here's my portfolio, and here's my, like the spray and pray. Maybe you do it. I wouldn't advise it.
Yeah, I think it goes back to that, like, being curious about them, right? Because, like, you may show up and have a portfolio, but if you just talk to them and, oh, yeah, it totally makes sense. I've seen that with other people in your industry. You're being interested in them. That's going to get them, because everyone is going to feel like they're being sold to. So the less you can make them feel like that, and the more, like, you just learn and, research people, right? Because that's always a way to figure out where people are and whether you're right for them or they're right for you. That's the easiest way, is like just learn a bunch more about people at these events. And as long as you're being genuine, then yeah, I think that most people are pretty good about being open like that.
So basically, bottom line, we're saying, like, just get curious and learn. Yeah, I love that as our bottom line. Okay, mic drop, take it away. We're finished.
And that is great timing because we have just reached the 30-minute mark. Yeah, and once again, my name is Phelan at Seymour Digital Media.
And I'm Aura McKay at Business of Creativity.
Perfect. And if you have any other questions, please leave them in the comments for Cyberpunk Marketing Mixer, and we will be happy to answer them. And we'll definitely post, I think I have a UTM param builder, and that I think that I'm going to have a link to, because it's super useful for you guys anywhere to just build a UTM parameter.
Yeah, and the Go-Giver link as well.
Okay, awesome. All right.
Awesome.
Bye for now.
Bye for now.